Hello! I do have a book that I've been wanting to read for a very long time, and that book is War by Brandon Sanderson. I have read the first three books. All of them have their own little video, and I am making a video dedicated to this book because it's over 1,000 pages. Now, this one it might have spoilers in it, but it's hopefully not going to be spoiler heavy. This is probably like one of the few book series that I will actually sit down and read over 1,000 pages for. This is such a good world, and the characters are absolutely incredible in this, and I just genuinely love this story so much. And it's crazy because I was like, I'm gonna read a 1,000 page book and read Brandon Sanderson because people love him. And then I literally became obsessed with this. After like the first three books, I didn't read this because I quite literally had no time to, but I do now. So I'm going to sit down and read this book because I've been wanting to. Also, the fifth book and the last in this arc, which I have no idea what that means, is coming out at the end of this year in December. I'm hoping I want to get my hands on it, but at the same time, I don't want a hardcover. So I'm hoping because of how thick this book is that there will be a like instant paperback happening. Okay, we're gonna say it now. Kaladin's my favorite character. All right, he's my sweet baby boy. And these books, they do follow every character and their perspective, but there is like a main person that it follows. And oh my gosh, I also had to watch a recap. Yes, I actually did it. I actually watched a recap on Oathbringer. Thankfully, I forget what video I watched, but they made a like 5 minute version explaining kind of the events that have happened. I did get kind of spoiled for this book on like Pinterest because I do this to myself every single time. I do know that Kaladin gets like therapy in this book. Dalinar is, obviously writing a book, and then Shallan is like doesn't know who she is anymore. So that's gonna be so much fun to read about, but genuinely very excited. I have yet to read either of the interludes for this series, but I am planning on doing that. I have read them absolutely out of order by now, so might as well just commit to the bit. But yeah, this book is like 1,219 something pages, so it's a lot. But yeah, I'm hoping I can chug through this and also have an enjoyable time while I do that. Bye! Hello. Oh my gosh. It is quite a bit later. I filmed that at like 12 p.m. It is now almost or is 11 p.m. now. I got to page 140, which is chapter 10. I also started annotating this book. Yeah. Just I want you to let you know that this is 140 pages. That is absurd, and I don't know why. It's probably because I'm stupid. I thought that this would be like so much faster to get through than the little like miniature versions that I have of these. I got like the more compact ones. So I was like, oh, like the text will be bigger in these, like it'll be so much faster to read. No. So 140 pages. Is that how much I wanted to read? No. Did I get a headache and then also had to end up eating dinner because it took me 4 hours to read that much? Yes. Okay. I would have loved to have gotten to 200 pages, but I settled for 140 because I genuinely was just like needed a minute from this. So we are following Navani, I believe is how you pronounce her name. I thought that this would be following her daughter, Jasana, but it isn't. It's following. So Navani is Dalinar's now wife. She used to be the wife to Galvanar, who used to be the king. So Dalinar is Galvanar's brother, and Navana is like had a crush on both of them, but ended up choosing Galvanar. So Dalinar's always had a crush on her, and then they ended up getting married, even though it was like scandalous. It's a whole thing, but I will say, I was very like weirded out when I found out that it was her instead of Jasana, because I was kind of expecting the perspective from her, because spoilers, Jasana became queen in the last book, and so I was expecting kind of her perspective in this as becoming like a new ruler for the kingdom, and also kind of her grief of losing her brother. But no, we are following Navani, who is grieving her son, Elkhorn. Elkhorn. Pronunciation is not my strong suit. Okay, if you've watched any of my videos, you know this. I mean, this has so far been really fun, and just getting back into this world. We've gotten a lot, like off of the bat. We've gotten a lot of Shallan and Kaladin, who are like two of my favorites. And also with Navani, I think the reason that we are following her perspective is because she is kind of the outlet to help us kind of understand more of the world. And we're getting in, like, because there's little chapter headings, and it's usually from like the titles are usually books that they are referencing, The Way of Kings, and then you have Words of Radiance, and then you have Oathbringer. Oathbringer is the book that Dalinar is writing. The Way of Kings is the like book that Galvanar and Dalinar have like had an obsession with, and they were like trying to figure out the mystery behind that. So we're kind of using Navani to learn more about this world and the Sren and the like they have these like gemstones that can be filled with stormlight or the spren, and then you can use those to create different things like shoot fire, heat things up with the fire. Like, listen, I'm not good at giving examples, so I'm just using heat as one of those things, but this is so fun. Honestly, we're following Shallan as she's going on like this mission, and she's using her light weaving, which much I just have to say, I love all of the like different abilities in this, and Shallan's light weaving and then also her multiple personality thing is so interesting for a character, but also for like the relationships that she has with Adeline, who I'm gonna say it right off the bat, I don't love Adeline, which I know is like a crime, a sin, but he's just not really for me. I won't get into it right now, but it's very interesting to see their dynamic and how he kind of deals with it, because Vale, one of the her like personalities, does not vibe with him. In fact, she likes Kaladin more, but Shallan kind of roped her in. Although I would love to see more of Vale and like Kaladin's dynamic kind of roll out, and Shallan being like incredibly embarrassed by it and everything. And then speaking of Kaladin, he's still very much the ringleader of Bridge 4, which are like his main guys, but he now has more people under his control, because basically he is a wind runner, if I'm remembering correctly. He basically, like, people around him can get those powers just from proximity of being with a windrunner, and he's bonded to a honor spren, and there's not a bunch of them, so basically a majority of the people around him are only able to have their powers because they are around windrunners, and then even if they get their honor spin, they can't, like, they'll take up oaths and stuff, but I forget the exact reasoning. It was some sort of spren that made it so that he's like only able to have abilities more than everybody else, which, by the way, like, I kind of do hate when they do that, when they're like have a hyper specific thing that makes it so that nobody else is as talented as them. But at the same time, I'm like, that makes sense, because obviously otherwise they would just be surpassed, and then we'd have the annoying subplot of them being like, oh my gosh, like somebody's more powerful than me, when they're already fighting in this world like really powerful beings. So it'd be just like a weird thing to have. There was a scene that I love, because Kaladin's my favorite character. Okay, I don't care if that's basic. Okay, I love that man so much. There was a scene they discovered this, there's, oh, what the heck are they even called? I forget what the devices are even called. where they have the gemstones that have the spren in it. There was one with void light and this new singer or parshman, I believe, parshman. There's like different variants of them, and they use what's called void light, and they had this device that made it so that Kaladin like cut off his powers and everything. I, I See, this is why I love Brandon Sanderson, because he's able to bring in like such heavy topics and such like grueling things, but he also is able to just like mix humor with it, not only with Spren being like side characters and having like, you know, opinions and things to say, and they don't really understand everything, so they say some absurd things. Love that, but it's also just like this guy is like making it so he's coming into this burning house so that he can't fly around anymore, and is takes away Kaladin's powers, and he's like, see, you like wind runners, you radiants are nothing without your powers. And then as he's saying this, like the dude's gonna keep continuing, Kaladin literally rushes one of the dudes, one of the parishmen rushes him, takes that dude's spear, downs everybody else. This dude is able to like disappear and reform himself. The parishman that he's fighting, it's a new like there's like different variants of them. And he literally, since he's fought him before, is able to predict that he's like about to like appear. So he turns around, and right as this dude's appearing, he stabs him in the neck. And I was laughing and kicking my feet at that scene. This man, again, spoilers, this is already just spoiler territory. This man took down a dude with a shard blade without having powers. And you're sitting here, and you're I listen, I know the dude who's the parishman who was fighting him didn't know that. But like, it's so funny to me to think that like a character would be, any character in the universe would be like, Kaladin's no good at like physical fighting without his powers. This dude has done so much without those powers, okay? He's incredible. Yes, he does heavily rely on his powers now. He even says that. But like, this dude has taken down incredibly powerful people with very limited power and no power, okay? There's no way you're taking this dude out. Also, hate Moash. I don't even care if I'm mispronouncing his name. He showed up. There's a whole thing. I do now kind of see, like, I'm, because of the whole, like, Pinterest thing where I saw that, like, Kaladin gets therapy. I'm guessing that the troubles that he's going through now with all of this, he's always been this character that's had, like, insane self-doubt and fear for the people that he's loved, which is valid, and it's very nice to see a character who goes through that. But it's kind of just like it's become his thing, and it's kind of just like because it keeps happening, and then it keeps nah, nah, nah. But he's now having nightmares, and in this universe there's just so much wild stuff that can happen with that. So it's kind of like I'm not sitting here being like, oh my gosh, he's doing it again. I'm like, there's probably something more to it, but I'm like, I know that he's gonna have either something's gonna happen that's gonna make him spiral, and then something good's gonna happen, or he's gonna save something, or he's gonna talk to somebody, or just something's gonna happen, and he's gonna be like, oh my gosh, like, you're right, I need to do this. Like, listen, love him. Sometimes his character is a little bit predictable. I freaking love this series, okay? Yes, I'm only 140 pages in. I'm going to literally consume this so much. All right, this is like one of my favorite universes. It's so like the powers in it are so cool. The like whole universe and the characters are just incredible. I love this so much. And the fact that we've gotten so much Kaladin already, I'm so happy. I am so happy. Oh, we got a perspective from Kaladin's dad, Lyrian, and he's talking about his past of being like a spy. Which I'm probably wrong. We might have gotten something about that in the previous books, but I swear we haven't, okay? All I knew about his dad was surgeon. surgeon and didn't like the fact that Kaladin's anything else. Still, even though his son is like a radiant and windrunner, he's like, I trained you to be something else, which I mean is very true of the parent trope of that him loving his son like so much, but yet still berating him for not becoming a doctor is like the funniest thing that he could have done in this book. But he has a past that we're gonna learn about supposedly, so that's crazy. But anyways, yeah. Good night. Hello. So I have gotten to the end of part one, and now I'm at the interludes, which was like 276 pages. I think I'm gonna be reading this for like 2 weeks, if we're gonna be very honest, because there's no way I'm gonna be able to read 200 pages within a day, is what I've discovered. So that's really fun. I think what I've discovered is the reason that I don't like Adeline is because he's a cocky character. And I only like cocky characters if we follow them, follow their perspective in it, because then we get kind of more to the character, more sides to it, and shows that they're normally like either insecure or that they have more depth to them. And with Adeline, we only see kind of the outside of it and things that I don't like, but I do understand now why people ship him with Kaladin. Just like some of the stuff that was happening when they were out at the bar is very funny to me. But also Vale still like flirting with Kaladin in like a very subtle way. Also, you can't tell me that he isn't still like, because he talks about Shalyn like and her past, and he talks about how she's afraid to tell it to Adeline, and yet she told it to Kaladin, and I'm like, he knows about your past and didn't judge you, and also like you did have a crush. Just saying. We've learned a lot about Spren, and also now Kaladin's being pulled back from being the like high master or whatever, high marshal for the Windrunners, because he saw Moash again, hate that man, and froze. So basically now he has his parents with him and he's gonna become a surgeon. I'm very interested in this storyline because they're talking about like how he didn't say the fourth ideal, and I'm guessing that that's gonna happen in this book. And then also the plans that we're seeing following Venli. She basically started this whole thing. She brought Odium into like this world by having him inhabit her body, and now she's like, I regret that, and trying to basically run away from it. And then we also see Li Shui, who is interested by the Windrunners, and I'm also guessing that she's gonna have like mercy on them, because she's also like testing Kaladin, and also just their relationship is very weird. So that's very interesting. I also did spoil myself again on Pinterest because it wouldn't be me reading an interesting book without accidentally spoiling myself on Pinterest. Actually, I don't think it's accidentally because I purposely was looking at art of Kaladin. Oh, also Rock left to go like face in his homeland, and I'm very terrified because Brandon Sanderson's perfectly fine with killing some of the like windrunners that we love or turning them. So I'm terrified of what he's going to be doing with Brock, because Brock is just like, he's a sweet little baby boy. and he was talking about how he's probably gonna die because of facing justice because he shot a bow, which that whole thing is still very crazy to me. But we now have like we're moving in to go and reclaim land from the singers and the fused. And the dude, I can't even, I'm just gonna call him Tarvar. He agreed with it, and he basically is believed to be working for Odium. And so they're like, why did he agree with us? And now because they have to take his troops because they were basically berating him for not sending any the past couple months. So it'd be weird if they were just like, we're not gonna take your troops. So I'm very concerned about how they're gonna be betrayed, and then also they're talking about in the tower, like how they're leaving certain people behind. And because I spoiled myself, I kind of know what's going to happen. So that's very fun. I don't know the exact of what's gonna happen, but I do know that Mr. Kaladin's gonna be locked in a tower. But anyways, we now know the singers slash fused plan to go into the tower, and then also the fact that they think that they can take over that tower. And now I'm terrified for Kaladin. But anyways, I got to part two, and now I get to read interludes, which are not my favorite thing to read, but I'm very excited to get to part two and kind of see what's happening. Because it kind of feels like this is gonna be like the main battle, but it's also like I'm guessing instead of it being like the big fight of the book, it's gonna be kind of like the main plot point of it, of like the fact that they're captured and all this stuff and that they're fighting and everything. So that's fun. I'm very concerned for what's gonna happen at the end of this if this fight is gonna happen so early in this book, because Brandon Sanderson loves giving me pain, so we will see. Hello, we're finally in a different location from where I normally film. Also, yes, I know my skin is bad. You don't need to point it out to me. I have read to page 392, which is chapter 28. I read the interludes and literally like maybe 4 chapters into part 2, which I forget what it's called, but in this we are getting Adeline's, we're getting his perspective in this. Also, I never showed this to you, but we have art of some of the heralds, and then it's also different in the back of this. Look at them. And also, because I didn't realize, because I'm stupid, that the heralds were like popping up throughout this series. So I'm very stupid. We've had his perspective before, but part 2 is called Our Calling. Him and Shallon are now in Shadesmere. Now we have Dalinar and Jasana going to try and defeat some of these singers away from the tower. So we now have Bonnie and Kaladin in being like the only ones in the tower because the Windrunners went with Dalinar. So when we were following, oh, I forget her name, but she like we were following her perspective, and we got told that the singers and the fused are basically planning to attack and take over the tower. I think I've already told you this. So now we kind of have this setup for it because they were talking about taking away the bondsmith, which is what Dalinar is. And then also on this trip, we are with Adeline and Shannon. We are seeing more of their relationship, and also, which like I want to speak on first, but so she like I do think that their relationship is very cute. I just don't know. It scares me to have an already committed relationship in a series where there's already been so much pain, at least on Kaladin's side. Everybody else is just kind of like, I have a very tragic past, and then nothing else. Kaladin just keeps losing like multiple people and then just having to sit there and, deal with it. So I think the relationships is cute. It's not the one that I was hoping for within this series, but you you win and you lose. And it also he is very helpful for her with her multiple personalities. We were watching how their dynamic kind of works because we haven't really seen them this way before because of the end of Oathbringer. She was like struggling with having multiple personalities, and then at the end of Oathbringer, it kind of brought on like a solution for it. And it's funny, all of them are talking about not remembering their past and like needing to like work on it, like literally all of them. So I'm guessing that that's either something to do with the like unmade, or it's something to do with just kind of like I don't know in it, but it's very interesting that like all of them are dealing with that, like their memories and stuff. It's very interesting. Oh, I forget the name for it, but there's this other personality that every time she wants to try and remember her past and things get dark, she can feel it kind of forming. So she kind of just like doesn't want to think about that type of stuff, and so she lets her other personalities kind of take over for her. That dynamic is very interesting. Also, the relationship that we've seen between them is very nice. Also, pattern. I love all of the spread. We got a perspective in the interludes from Sil, I think is how you pronounce her name. Her whole name is like too complicated for me to remember, but oh, and Kaladin, my sweet baby boy, he is now becoming a therapist. I guess I read that scene wrong on Pinterest when I saw like him going to therapy. He technically is, but he's now becoming like a therapist. And I'm kind of terrified because he's like, I'm finding my like way in this world and how to be happy without having to fight and everything. But with the attack that's impending, I have an idea of the fact that he's not going to be able to have peace because he's going to be going and fighting so much. So he's literally going to like not be able to keep the happiness that he's found. So like, he just really loves torturing Kaladin, and I despise that so much. It's so nice to see him kind of exploring his emotions and everything. This book does all of these books in this series have done a very good job of kind of not necessarily like explaining what's happening to the character with their mental health, but going through it with the character and them trying to figure it out, and then, kind of them trying to deal with it while having so much pressure. It's such a like nice thing to see somebody who acknowledges the fact that, like with Kaladin, he had to step back because he kept freezing and because of he had seen so much and gone through so much. So it's very nice to see a writer acknowledge that, and that they aren't just going to be go 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 and not be affected by it. So that's a very nice aspect that I really love in this series. We haven't gotten a perspective from Dalinar yet, but like from Navani's perspective, it is really nice. You can see the contrast between Galvanar and Dalinar in this book, and it is like I wouldn't say drastic, but it's very apparent. The way that Galvanar was treating her towards the end was very bad, and that has to do with now this stone that they found, and I think the unmade. His whole storyline, Galvanar's like storyline, is still being figured out, like what he was doing in those months and everything about it, and why he was killed in the first place by the singers. And like we have kind of an understanding of why they did it, but we don't know like the full reasoning as to like, like they had a fear of him like using everything and turning everything bad, but it's like, why did you have that fear? So it's a very interesting thing to watch. I also, the wit, I like my brain for some reason kept mixing up the Farseer trilogy and this one because I was thinking about like the first book when the wit was like degrading Dalinar, and I was like, no, this is from the Farseer trilogy. No, it's not. No, it's not. And man, was it such a simple time in the Way of Kings, at least for every other character in this book. But it's crazy the amount of stuff that has happened, and reading this and like re-seeing how much has happened is insane. I am like, I think I'm like 1/4 of the way into this, which is crazy. Also, the art in this is very nice to see, and like the little explanations within the art as well. And then we kind of, either in later chapters or like the one right after it, we get like a explanation of it, and it's very nice because sometimes they just give you art and you're like, what is this? Yeah, just, terrified for Kaladin. Always am in this freaking series. I also got a spoiler for what might happen at the end of this book. Something to do with Odium throwing him somewhere. So, you know, Kaladin can never have peace, and I'm terrified of what Brandon Sanderson means by like this is the end of this arc. Like, are we gonna be following new characters? And if so, I'm terrified of what happens in book 5. Because what do you mean we're gonna be following new characters? Uh this whole quote is so insane. And then this. Oh. I made it to the end of part 2. To the interludes now. Why? Why? He keeps hurting me. Why does Brandon Sanderson keep hurting me? Oh my gosh. Oh, I just look 50 times paler now. I am now officially halfway through Rhythm of War. I'm on chapter 47, which is page 603. So technically, by page count, not halfway through. I think I have to read a little bit further, but you can't tell me that's good. It is Saturday, so I've already said this, my dreams and hope of reading like 200 pages a day, dashed. Gone out the freaking window. Also, you can see back here, there were photos in the like front and back of these books, which I think I showed you, which are the heralds, and we got, I unless Oathbreaker had them, I believe this is the first book with herald, like the photos of the heralds in it, not the first book mentioning the heralds, because from the beginning we knew about the heralds and we've seen them throughout the series, but we got all the photos from this book in there. I also took out the map from this book. Did I rip the front page of this just a little bit? Yes. But listen, it's my property. I can do what I want with it, alright? So I have the map hanging up on my wall also. Alright, where did I last leave you off? Okay, so the Singers and the Fused have now invaded the tower. Dalinar is now fighting, and he's gotten betrayed by Taver. I'm just gonna call him Tower. And that dude, he basically is like a genius some days and stupid some days, or it's more he's intelligent other days and he's empathetic other days. So he is basically working with Odium to kind of take down everybody so that everybody can serve under Odium so that he then can fight like this holy war. And this dude, Tavar, is basically sacrificing his life for that, but he was empathetic when the turn was happening, and so when he talked to Odium, who takes him into like these dream places, he got shown the plan, and there's something having to do with, oh, I know how to say his name, Ren, I'm just gonna call him Renarin. I'm sorry, with him being able to see into the future and it being like blacked out because of that, anybody who's near him, which is very interesting. We got Adeline going into the honor, the like integrity house, whatever it's called, in Shadesmar. He basically was like, I'll do a trial for all the humans that have betrayed you, and they're like, okay, bring your whoever you want with you, and he was like, I'm bringing Shalyn, and then Pattern is coming along. We now believe that Pattern is betraying Shalyn to the ghost bloods, so, and it has something to do with her past as well. So there's a whole thing behind that that's very interesting. And then the line that had me, so basically right now we're focusing on the kind of tower attack that's happening. The singers infused aren't killing anybody who doesn't attack them. Like if you attack them, you're gonna get killed. And all of the radiants got knocked out except for Kaladin and I believe Lift. We got a interlude from her. I also just love Lift so much, and her character is just funny, but also like has just so much depth that we haven't even explored yet. And also her powers are different from everybody else in like a weird way. So she's a very interesting character. I believe they're the only two that are awake, and we just experienced Kaladin when they were trying to, the singers were taking away the unconscious radiance, and Teft is one of the unconscious radiance, and so he basically killed this singer and let the other one go, and there's this fused who's looking for him, but his father like saw him kill the fused and basically said they really did kill my boy, and Kaladin just goes, I've been trying to tell you that they killed your boy. Soldier Boy and Wanny Whoa. Watch me crack, watch me whoa. Uh then Superman. So sorry. So that scene made me cry because his father and him, he's finally been at peace, and then this tower gets attacked, and he now is dealing with having to face his kind of fears, but he's still terrified from it. And I also believe has PTSD. It's not a, mental health isn't really a thing in this book, at least not yet. Kaladin literally invented therapy, so of course, it's not really a thing, but I'm pretty sure he has some form of like PTSD or just something of that kind of range happening with him. The way that they keep saying battle shock, I'm like, so you mean PTSD from that? Like, is that what you mean? Just what he's going through, and having to now protect Teft, and while being hunted, and just also Navani, love her so much. She literally was like, we're gonna push to get into this part of the tower. We're gonna feed it stormlight so that it can stave off the fused for a little while, for so that they can't take over the tower. And then and then she's like, we're gonna surrender so nobody else dies. Of course there were soldiers and everything that died, and there were some of her scientists that died. Obviously that was gonna happen, and the soldiers were gonna be kind of, I believe, were gonna be killed no matter what. But just the fact that she knows that if she protects this building, she has more time to create a plan, and also she's not sacrificing lives. I just adore her so much. And her, like, the, I forget what it's called, but the sibling is a being within this tower that was sleeping and then got woken up and was talking to Navani on like this span read. Now those don't work, and the sibling is basically the building, and so now she's like talking to the building by putting her hand on like the stones in the walls. I have a weird feeling that since we're following her perspective, and of course that doesn't mean that she is going to become a radiant, infused with the sibling, but it feels kind of like maybe, because the sibling is like how the honor spren are, where they're like, humans betrayed us, like, and it's like one lifetime to them, but it's been like thousands of years for humans. So yeah, I'm as much as I am loving reading for like reading the tower attack that's happening. I'm very interested in what's happening with Dalinar and also what's happening with Adeline and Shallan down in Shadesmere. And I'm a little bit terrified because they're not talking about it. So, but I think literally this chapter 48, 47, yeah, it is Dalinar. So, that's gonna be fun. Because there has to be something so bad that makes it so that Kaladin speaks the fourth ideal. And then there also has to be something like outrageous that happens, something really big that happens because we're already into this action and we're only halfway through the book. They've already invaded the tower and we're only halfway through this book. There's something else that's going to happen and I'm terrified because Brandon Sanderson said no peace for Kaladin. He said, I'm gonna give other characters like, a little relationship, a little bit love, so they have a character that they can lean on. And then he said, screw you, Kaladin. Like, you don't deserve any rights. And I'm just like, please give him happiness. Please. Anyways. Yay! It's Tuesday. I have now reached page 800 in this freaking book, which means that I still have over 400 pages left of this. The fact that it takes me so long to get through even just 100 pages is insane. We've gotten Jasana, like, her point of view, and also Dalinar's, and it's very interesting seeing what's going on that side. I want to know what's happening with Shallan and Adeline, because what's happening there? Are we not gonna get that until the fifth book? Or is there gonna be something, like, related to that that's gonna happen at the end of this book? Either way, I'm terrified because they're talking about him being on trial. So, like, is he gonna be there for a while this whole invasion's happening? Anyways, the tower got more, like, corrupted because apparently it uses cultivation and stormlight, or like life light and stormlight, to make like tower light. Is It's literally called tower light, and I was reading that, I was like, there's everything so fantastical in this world except for that. So funny to like read about the different experiments and lights that they're doing, because like I understand the experiments and stuff, but it's like I have no idea what to do to solve these issues. And I know I'm probably not supposed to, but it's just funny having to sit here and be like, I'm gonna learn along with you. I don't know. But the tower got more corrupted by void light, and now Paladin can't heal as fast. And he can't fly, but he does have the power of adhesion. So he can like attach stuff to walls or like attach things. He was talking about fighting with his shoes off so that he can like do stormlight through his feet to attach like anybody attacking him would get stuck in it. And I was like this man is literally like Spider. He's got some webs on him. But there was a device that I knew was going to be used by Khaled, and like at the second that they were like, oh, this has to do with flying, I was like, you're going to take away some of his powers. Which, by the way, I don't like the trope of like they can only be defeated because, or like they only have issues because they don't have their full powers. Like, just make the enemy more powerful, my guy. And he has this Fabrial. I'm not saying that right, but it's basically like you take gemstones and you fill them with stormlight, and now like void light, and he's able to travel in the way that his hand is pointing with like weights that drop. Very interesting. But he slammed into a wall and like fully broke his hand. Like the way that he talked about it breaking was so disgusting. I also want to say Brandon Sanderson, please stop torturing him. Like, I understand that why is it always that there is like one character in books where they just literally like make it so that they get tortured the entire series? Like, they get a moment of happiness and then they're like, that's enough. Like, no, we want to see this character have a happy ending, be happy, at least a little bit throughout the book. Like they don't need to suffer all the time just for them to be a dark and brooding character. Okay? Like you don't need to do that. And the whole thing with like the singers with Venli, I believe, like the whole past of Sonia, who we have like kind of we followed her in past books, and now we're listening to Venli like talk about it and like how now she's like understanding the radiance and being more like sympathetic towards humans. And I was just like, what a time to do that. You know, after you like started everything, what a time to start, you know, actually caring about people. But I've said this, I'm terrified of what's going to actually happen at the end of this book. Did I spoil myself more on Pinterest? Do I need to stop looking at Pinterest? Yes. I I'm so done with it. What? I hate it here. Oh, also, quick thing that I want to mention. I saw somebody like on Pinterest being like, "Moash, like he's like my favorite character, my beloved." Square up, because no, that man deserves everything horrible that's coming towards him. I don't care if his parents were murdered. Shannon's parents were murdered, or she killed Kaladin. Got his brother murdered. Like, there are so many characters that have gone through so much worse things than he did. And yet he's being a whiny little baby over here, killing the freaking king. That man deserves no love. Is that too harsh? Yes, but I hate that man so much. And I'm so angry right now. Who's even in the interludes? Oh, Zeth. Who is that second person? I think I've fully lost my mind. I get to read interludes. Is this the last like part of this? Um, Brandon Sanderson, I think you need to pay for my therapy bills. Listen, Mosh can be your favorite character, but that just means I don't respect you if he is. That being a fan of those people does not make sense to me. So, yay. This is not what I meant when I said that I wanted to know what was happening down there. Let's freaking go! Hi. Hashtag hug life. I am now on chapter 91, which is page 999. So now we've gotten Alan and Shallon's perspective. We also do have Kaladin's perspective in this, which I was concerned about because I was thinking like, oh, is he gonna make us think that Kaladin's dead for like the until the next part? And I was going to scream my head off at that, but thankfully, because Kaladin's a part of Bridge 4, he has his own chapter. I also, in like every single book, I've always loved reading from Bridge 4. There's some of my favorite characters. We got Lift out of jail because she's different for some reason, and her Stormlight that she has, she gets it from eating rather than from the gemstones and absorbing it that way. So she's able to still heal people because edge dancers are able to do that. So she heals Kaladin, who was like, I just Oyam is taking him into nightmares and everything, but he was injured and like almost dead. And then Dalinar like visited him with the Stormfather through like the storm. This, like, if you've never read this series or don't know what it's about, this whole sentence sounds absolutely insane. But he basically helped Kaladin stay alive. by like pushing him up on a slope, and now Dalinar knows what is happening. But we now have Kaladin back awake and healed. We have Teft who's awake. We have David who is talking. We got his perspective, and I just have to say, anytime that there's a character with like a difference with them, because there's a lot of those characters in these books, whether that's Alan or is it Roland? I don't know how to pronounce his name, or just Shalyn, like everybody who basically gone through anything in this book series. I personally think that Mr. Brandon Sanderson does a very good job of kind of expanding and exploring those stories and doing it in a like I I don't know what the right word to use is, but like in a way that doesn't minimize their struggles and also brings forth the conversations of those, and it's a very important topics that he talks about. Although it's very funny because in this series they literally didn't have therapy or anything for like battle shock, so they don't have like actual coping mechanisms in this, and so to read about how horrible everything is, and then you just see other characters comforting them by being like, "Oh yeah, I have that thing too," and then them just being like, "Yeah, but there's nothing really to help," and you're just like, Adeline, his trial in Shadesmere, not going well, not going well, and now we have kind of been hinted throughout this entire series of having Formless, who is kind of, I believe, very dark part of Shalyn. Like it comes from her past being kind of obscured to her, because we in multiple books have learned about kind of her past. It's been uncovered, but not like all of it. Like there's certain segments that she had to come to terms with and like had to revisit because of it, and she has like images of it but she doesn't fully have it. And I think one of the unmade is influencing her, if I'm remembering right, because that was like the very beginning of this book, that the unmade is influencing her and making kind of Formless by entering her mind and doing kind of what Odium's doing to Kaladin, except the unmade is using kind of her past to create that. Or I could be completely wrong and it is just Shalyn creating unconsciously creating a new personality. But basically the dude for the Ghost Bloods wants her to kill the Harold, who is in Lasting Integrity. That's right. He's like, hey, basically, you can't kill the Harold, but you go up and stab him and trap him in this gemstone that's in the back of this knife. Bring him here, and then we're going to basically force him to tell us all this stuff about the Heralds and the Oath Pacts and what's really happening. Because everything's coming back because they believe that one of the guys who they basically sent to damnation, because they would go there every single time they died and they would have to get back out and it would just be repeating the cycle. They basically stuck him there and then the rest of them went on living. So they believe that the dude stuck in damnation is dead, and that's why all of the singers and then all of the radiants are coming back. And then also, so like, with the honor sprint in this, we now like they basically, it's very much proven that they are very much like man and that they really like define what they do themselves. Like they have a fear of going back to humans, but they're very human-esque because they kind of have based themselves off of humans. And so the whole like trial, there's honor spren that are like you can tell that they're kind of wanting to go back and help, but they are terrified because of the afraid of dying because of humans breaking their oaths, and they're also kind of terrified of just like leaving in general because then the other honors friend would be like mad at them. But there's a whole thing also happening with Tavar that he's like doesn't believe in Dalinar and then does believe in Dalinar, and then he's like getting stupider by the day because he's getting closer to death now that he fulfilled his like pact with Odium. So And then also Navani's like whole storyline is like I feel like we've followed more of Venli and Ashonia in this than we have her, honestly, at this at this point. But she is incredibly interesting to kind of read about because she's doing a lot of experiments with different things. And it's very funny because she's like, I'm not a researcher, and then she discovers like basically everything. But her perspective is more informing of like a way to possibly beat Odium with like different tools that she's creating versus like everybody else's is like the either the action that's happening to them or they're like planning or hiding. Like theirs is a lot more like action packed and hers is kind of just like researching it, and also the relationship that she's formed with the singer at Rebony, I'm not gonna pronounce her name, okay? Who is I think called the Lady of Wishes, if I'm remembering her name right, who respects humans and wants them to be serving under her and not her equal. Basically, this whole war that's happening has been happening for thousands of years, but I'm so close to being done with this. I literally have like 200 something pages, like 219 pages, I believe, and I'm terrified for this to be over, but at the same time, I'm like wanting to move on because this has taken me like 2 weeks already to get to this point. Also, somebody was talking about there was like art of Moash doing the like salute that they have. I believe they said it was like wrist to wrist, like this. Either that or it was like this or like this. But somebody somebody was talking about how it looks like the Wakanda Forever symbol. And I'm like, if they ever did a live adaptation of this like TV show, I would have to imagine it would have to be a TV show because of how much is in these books. Because I don't know if you could make a whole movie series out of these without it being so expensive. But I was just thinking about that. I was like, would they have to change it for like live action? Because that does look like funny. I didn't really like for some reason in my brain I didn't really put that together. So, thank you so much. Also, did I see a spoiler for the end of this book? Yes. I didn't go on Pinterest again since last time. I promise you that. Okay, I want to see a fan art of Kaladin, so I'm going to look at it. I don't know how this is going to conclude within the next 200 pages. Because something's going to happen, and I'm terrified because of that. Anyways. Hello. It may or may not be like a couple days later. Actually, probably like 3 days since I finished Rhythm of War. I listen. I love what procrastinating. I can't. Okay, I can't speak now. So sorry. I read all 1,219 pages of Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Okay. Where did I even leave off? Okay, obviously, because I spoiled myself on Pinterest, I knew that Kaladin was like going to something was gonna happen to him, right? That he was gonna like I don't know, become powerful or something. Because well, it's Kaladin, and I would be kind of concerned if he spent so long making him like a hero just to turn him. Although he has so many reasons to at this point. Okay. I don't think I want to like fully talk about like spoil the ending of this also because like I remember key points of it, but it would take me a while to like go over all of it cuz I read like 200 pages. And a lot happens. I can say one thing about Brandon Sanderson is he knows how to end a book where especially in series because he knows how to have obviously the big, climax, the thing that makes it so that the reason you're reading in the first place for this crazy big event to happen. He like knows how to kind of resolve everything in sometimes in ways you didn't even think were gonna happen. A lot of the times you don't even know what's gonna happen, or at least I don't because I'm stupid and I'm not as creative as this man is. I personally did really love this book. By the way, I gave Rhythm of War 4 stars. I mean I just adore Brandon Sanderson and this series, and I am terrified to read the fifth book, but I think I saw a TikTok of somebody meeting Brandon Sanderson, and they were like showing meeting him, and they were like, "Are you're not gonna make me sad with the fifth book, are you?" And he just signed it and gave it back to her, like he didn't say anything, like, and he had a face that made it look like he was guilty of the fact that he did do that. So I'm a little bit terrified. I should have read this closer to December, but like also I'm not mad that I read this now because I've just been seething wanting to read this book series, continue on it more. Like, genuinely, the characters are so good. They each have their own unique storyline and personality and problems, but they each have such different storylines, but are all connected in such a beautiful way. I think I think I like this series too much. I think it's annoying how much I'm like, I love this series. People are like, shut up. But I will say this book definitely was like all of this book series has been talking about kind of mental health. And it's very weird because I you typically never see this in fantasy books where they talk about mental health within it because it is kind of just go 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 for like characters. I also think there are some authors who don't know how to write about it or don't want to because they don't want like their characters to seem weak. But I have to say I think it makes it more interesting and also kind of with R.F. Kuang with Poppy War. Spoilers for that if you haven't read that, but the kind of derangedness and the kind of copying of the people who were oppressing her in the first place because of the trauma that she's gone through and because she sees this world so much as evil because of the amount of terror and horrible horrible things that she has gone through, her kind of devolving and becoming bad, not as bad as like the people who she fought against in the first place, but becoming somebody worse and somebody that she originally would have hate and fought against is such an interesting way to take that mental health and twist it into kind of, because this wasn't addressed because they've gone through so much, here are the effects of it. And I think that it is something that in these books does need to be talked about because as much as it is inspirational to watch like your favorite characters get back up and up again, it is also incredibly important to realize that those characters who are incredibly powerful are also going through things. Like, it's very obvious that they are, but it's not talked about in such a way where it's, super acknowledged. It just kind of is like, I have these issues, and then it's used against them by somebody else, and then they're like, realize, oh, I'm more powerful than those problems, and then they're like, better instantly. Through this, you kind of see characters have their up and downs, and kind of not everything's fixed just because they say new oaths or they, go through something. They definitely have improvements, but I do appreciate the kind of, I don't think diversity is the right word, but I'm going to use it, of showing their up and downs and their mental health issues. I do think that it's not like, I'm not, as much as I'm like sitting here talking about how great it is, it's definitely not like, I don't know. I've never really read a fantasy book that does like really like breaks down the characters really well because I also think a lot of people who read fantasy are in it for kind of the action of it. So I think a lot of people would be bored by kind of like them like actually sitting down with a therapist and then being like, let's talk about your childhood or the wars that you've gone through. So I definitely don't have anything really to compare it to, but this definitely isn't like, because again, I've said it already in this video, therapy is not a thing in this world. Literally, Kaladin invented therapy, fun fact. Yeah, there isn't in this world like ways to cope and ways to like that they do need to actually step back from it, especially when they are needed in these worlds. And it's not like the greatest mental health or like representation ever, but it is representation, and I think that that absolutely does matter, especially with really strong characters, especially with Kaladin, with how much he's gone through. He's always been kind of the like brooding, like character that's kind of down in his feelings, and I do love him for part of that. That is a part of the reason that I do love him so much, is because he is like, he's not just thinking about like himself, he's thinking about the actions and the harm that it can cause other people, and like he thinks about some other people so much that it affects him. Like he doesn't think about himself that like at all, and it's part of the reason I love him. But he also has to learn how to deal with that, and so it's great. Also, Shannon, I love her storyline, and I will say, as much as I do hate on Alan, and I don't, he's not my favorite character. I don't think he ever will be. I can say now that he is. I'm okay with reading his chapters. Of course, I prefer Kaladin. He's my freaking favorite character. Okay, I prefer reading Kaladin over Dalinar's chapters, and I like Dalinar. Okay, I have my bias. Okay, but it's incredibly interesting to watch him navigate his relationship with Shallan, and I think that he does a really good job of it, and he's incredibly respectful of it, and he like goes to her and like tries to help her out and like get her out of her shell when she's stuck, and like actually helps her through issues. And I just, as much as I am toxic towards him, I do understand why people love him. Okay, I do understand why he might be one of your favorite characters, and I also will say his dynamic with Kaladin, I do love it. Okay, I was annoyed by him because he was a little spoiled rich boy making comments about Kaladin being a bridge boy and all this stuff, but I definitely I understand that it is joking. I don't know why, but that just got under my skin. It's just like, you little rich boy, you stole away Shannon and you're making fun of him for being a bridge boy. He was a slave while you were getting fed grapes every day. Like I just had this hatred in my heart towards him, and I'm so sorry for that. Okay, if he's your favorite character, I'm sorry for the hate that he has received in this video. I also just want to say, Jasana or Jasani, I'm so sorry. I'm probably mispronouncing her name. Love her. She's an icon. Okay, her whole storyline. I was kind of like I was like interested in her storyline, but I was kind of also just like not really knowing like how it fully fit in at times. But I can tell you that ending, love her so much. I also do love that we got a more of an expanded side of the singers, because obviously it was probably going to be needed later on in this series. I do love the fact that he shows both sides of it, and why people think that they're justified for doing what they did, and also learning more about Galvanar's like whole past, what he was doing, and why they decided to kill him, and also the heralds too. Like this, just kind of everything got brought forward. Oh, also, we kind of get more mentions of the Cosmere in this, and also what Odium is doing, why he's trying to basically like enslave everybody, is to basically have like this big fight with the gods in the Cosmere. So like, and then Wit is still like mysterious, but like there's a whole lot happening. And yes, I am still confused on some of the points, even though I probably shouldn't be. That's just because I'm stupid. But it genuinely is very interesting. I do absolutely need to not only read the novellas for this series, but I also do absolutely need to catch up on some of the secret projects, and just like other, like the second, I forget what it's called, but basically the second part to the Mistborn series. I would love to read that. Like I need to get caught up on everything. There's so much, but there's also like not enough. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to read book 5. I'm excited to read more of different books in the Cosmere, because I have been told that there are references to different things. I have also kind of seen references of to like Mistborn, and also like different entities and worlds in this that I'm very interested in learning about. And also it's really cool to see the correlation between books. Also, just humans being like invading species, and yet being the one who like killed majority of the singers is crazy. Just being like, this is our planet now. Although I guess that is humans. You can see it throughout history. Anyways, Yeah, I mean, I think I will always have a soft spot for this series, and I obviously think that's very evident because I've read 4 books that are over 1,000 pages. Even over 800 pages, you know I'm dedicated and truly love something if I'm willing to read over 800 pages of something. So, I will say, I would, if you want to get into Brandon Sanderson, I would say personally, the Mistborn series, I know that there are some people who think that you should read it a certain way, but if you want to get into Brandon Sanderson, you don't want to get into 1,000 page book series instantly or the Stormlight Archives, and you maybe want to get some of the references, I would say Mistborn, because I started with Mistborn. It was really good. I do need to read more of the. What is it even called? I don't know. Skyward and Starsight. I need to continue that series, but yeah, I mean, if you're looking for like a really thick, like high fantasy to get into, I think that this is an incredible series. And also just the insane amount of like change that we've had within 4 books. This will keep you on your toes. It's incredible, at least in my opinion. But yeah, that is my reading video on Rhythm of War and my tabs. I have like orange. I have orange tabs on this for iconic moments. I literally ran out of them. Let me see if I can find you one. Oh, that's a spoiler. Never mind. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and tell me whether or not you've read this series, what your thoughts are on it, and also what other fantasy series you think I would like if I like this series. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into another 1,000 page fantasy series. I truly don't know if I would ever get into another 1,000 page book series or read another 1,000 page book that isn't in this series. So, anyways, bye.